In this lesson we're going to work on view components, since we have already converted all JavaScript files into TypeScript files. So now it's time to do the same with view components. And the first component we're going to start conversion with is ActivityItem.view. And just to remind you what this component is responsible for, let's take a look in the browser, open up Activities page, and add a new activity. And that ActivityItem component is responsible for rendering individual list items in this activities list. And the first thing that we have to do before actually introducing TypeScript into view component is to assign special attribute to this script tag called length with the value of ts. And this gives us an ability to use TypeScript syntax inside view components. So for now we're going to skip the declaration of the prop activity and come back to it later. And firstly we're going to assign types to the parameter as well as the return value of the function delete and reset activity. So this function accepts objects of the activity type. Let's specify the proper type in here, which is an activity. And since this function does not return any value, the return type will be void. And now anytime we're gonna use the function delete and reset activity inside the script tag or inside our template, and if we're going to pass wrong value inside this function, which is not an activity object, right away TypeScript is going to give us an error. So that's that. Now we're gonna go back to define props macro. This macro is used to declare props of this component. But now, since we are using TypeScript, we also have an ability to specify types for every property that is accepted by component. And the syntax is actually different from that one we have used earlier. So first of all, I'm going to cut this whole object we're passing inside define props macro, because we're not gonna need it anymore. We have a different way of specifying types for props in TypeScript. So to properly type the value which is accepted by this component from outside, we're going to use generic type syntax and pass dynamic type by using angle brackets. And since this component accepts only one prop called activity, we're going to use the key activity, and then we assign the type for this property, which will be activity interface. So this notation is going to do pretty much the same effect as the previous notation. And by the way, as for this validator property, before we had to use custom validators to verify that we pass proper values inside view components, but now TypeScript is going to ensure we're passing correct types, since we explicitly declare types for props. So there is no need to use this validator key anymore, we can get rid of it. Along with that, let's also get rid of an import for isActivityValidValidator function in here, and use keyword type when we are importing activity type. We could also think that isActivityValid function is no longer needed, but actually if we search for this function in the whole project, we will see a couple of mentions of this function. That means it is still used in some components. So for the time being, let's keep this function around and come back to it once we're gonna type other components that use this function. So now that fact that we have explicitly specified the type for props activity, anywhere we're going to use this prop inside this component, ID is going to give us autocompletion, which wouldn't be the case if we wouldn't assign the type for the prop. So as we can see, using TypeScript gives us not only type safety, but also some cool advantages, such as proper ID autocompletes. So with that, there is only one error related to TypeScript inside this component, and this one is related to selected prop of another component base select. We're going to type base select component in one of the next lessons, and for now I'll just disable this error by manually converting the result of this expression to any type like so. But we are definitely going to fix displays properly in the future lessons. So we have successfully converted our first view component to use TypeScript. Let's continue development in the next lesson.